is Braden, and I am the Senior Manager of Community Outreach for Little Kids Rock. I want to welcome everybody to our teacher expert panel on composition. We've got three amazing educators here to share their wisdom and expertise on student songwriting. But before we get started, I just wanted to run through a few other upcoming events we have this month. So this month's community learning theme is composition. So we have tons of curricular resources being released to look out for. Those will be in your weekly resource email, as well as, and you heard it here first, the launch of our annual songwriting exhibition for students coming up on February 1st. So look out for that. This Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern, we're having Little Kids Rock team office hours, so you can log on and ask us any questions and get advice on your classroom and your program. We'll be having another one of those as well on Friday the 29th. Next week on January 22nd, we're doing our monthly community social meetup, which is super cool this month. It's a virtual escape room. So make sure to sign up for that by January 19th. You can click the link in your weekly resources email, which you should have received today. Our 2021 community survey is open now through the 22nd. So fill that out and let us know which community events, just like this one, are important to you and how we can best support you for the rest of this school year and beyond. That link is also in your weekly resources email. And lastly, we have lots of virtual professional development sessions coming up that are open to our entire teacher community. So if you can check those out by going to our certification page on littlekidsrock.org, signing up for those. So with all that out of the way, I want to introduce our panelists. Rosalind White has been teaching middle and high school instrumental music for 7 years in Harlem, New York at Wadley Secondary School for the Performing and Visual Arts. Miss White grew up in New York City schools and attended LaGuardia High School as a French horn major. And she now teaches at various institutions throughout New York, including Harlem School of the Arts and Jazz at Lincoln Center. Mario Leal is the music director at Francisco Bravo Medical Magnet High School and has been a teacher for over 14 years, shepherding student songwriters. For 3 years, he's led a really popular breakout session on songwriting at our Modern Band Summit conference. And he has an article on remote learning tools for teaching songwriting in this month's upcoming edition of School Band and Orchestra magazine. And Jasmine Faulkner is a music teacher at Polaris Expeditionary Learning School in Fort Collins, Colorado. She teaches K through 12 modern band. She's been teaching music since 2002 and was recently trained to be a Little Kids Rock teacher trainer. She's currently developing K through 12 curriculum for the full inclusion modern band classroom and also managing a grant for a traveling youth stage trailer, which is super cool. And last but not least, our moderator, Mary Claxton. She joined our team at full-time as the Colorado Director of Programs in August 2017. Before that, she was a classroom teacher for 5 years and began work as a Little Kids Rock teacher trainer during that time. She now works as our senior developer of curricular programs, and she gigs regularly as both a drummer and a vocalist. At least she did pre-pandemic. I don't know what she's doing now, but we can ask her. So thank you all so much for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for being here with us in this virtual space. And I could not be more thrilled to be talking to these three educators this evening. There will be some time later on in this session for folks to ask questions. We have a big list of questions ourselves, but we want to make sure we get to that too. So feel free to write down anything that comes to mind, anything that you're curious about as you are working on songwriting with your own students. So I'm just going to jump right in here to a question that probably feels very relevant to many of us listening right now. What are some of the ways to overcome the challenge of collaborative songwriting in a virtual environment? And I think, this is one thing that even when we're back in schools, collaborating virtually is going to be something that we do forever. So who would like to start us off? How about Mario? You got the article coming out. Why don't you kick us off?
Awesome. Thank you. Um, it's just I think just setting up that rapport with the students from the beginning. Making them feel comfortable that this class is for us to share and to have fun. It's not to to criticize or to it's to bring someone down. So I think just establish that since day one, and the students get comfortable. Once that first song, that first project goes out, then they're like, okay, we got this. And the rest of the projects or songs, it's like they've been doing it for years. So yeah.
So you feel like you kind of have to like pull teeth just a little bit to set the groundwork, and
You
then
know,
it.
I model at the beginning, and I we write a song together, as a class, and I show them and I sing it. I don't like doing that really in front of the class, but I go, look, I'm going to show you just so you know what we came up with. Uh, you know, whether you think the lyrics are great or not. We're going to do this together, and then once we do it, and they're like, it's a song. I'm like, yes, it is a song. So I think that for them, it gets them really excited, and it motivates them to starting on their own, to get started on their own project, on their own song. But the kids are pretty good. Believe it or not, I'm pretty funny in the classroom, so I think they feel relaxed. So once we're there, it's like, okay, guys, let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rosalind, what do you have to add?
So I know that with my students, we use a lot of Zoom screen sharing, and even like just a simple phone call helps to have students collaborate with each other and overcome the challenges of collaborating virtually. And so, if one student doesn't have access to the music software, another student can screen share the digital audio workstation and play the sound through their device. And then that helps to foster collaboration when they're choosing loops or editing the rhythm of a found sound, and the student who's listening through the screen share is then able to give input into which sounds they like the best and offer suggestions for how to include it in their composition.
Yeah, fantastic. Jasmine, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I when Mario was talking about getting kids to feel comfortable, that is crucial in the class. So one of the things I do is I play silly games like ice games, and I have some lessons to share with everybody for that. But it's just getting people to share ideas. Like one group, and it's the very first lesson we do in class before they even learn how to play instruments. If they've never been in modern band before, they can use kazoos and just random things in the classroom, pre-COVID. And so like one song was about SpongeBob in Hawaii eating pineapple, right? And so that was what they had. They had three things, and they had to take that and make it into a song. And then I have some handouts I give them for kids that aren't sure how to play the instruments, and the kids who are familiar can play it. But right away, it's meant to be very silly, and just to get over that hump of it. A lot of times we approach songwriting as being very serious, and I think in our music education it's often taught where we're having to write everything down and be real serious about it. And I want to break that ice. It doesn't matter if they're in kindergarten, it doesn't matter if they're in 12th grade. It's meant to be fun and relaxed. And then I use for virtual learning, I use Soundtrap, and that's a collaborative tool for the students. And so they all go into a group. We use Microsoft Teams. And then while they're in that group, they work on creating songs together.
Yeah, really good points. And I did want to circle back because Rosalind, you also mentioned using digital audio workstations, which people abbreviate to DAWs. Like something that you use to record and mix music, and add in loops and all those things. So Jasmine was just mentioning Soundtrap, which is cloud based. Do either of you use any other tech tools to make that happen in addition to Soundtrap?
So last year I used Soundtrap because they gave a free subscription, but this year I'm using BandLab, and it's able to be used on tablets, iPads, laptops, and phones too.
Yeah, that's great. Mario, did you were you going to say something as well?
Yeah, I use Soundtrap, but not for the guitar class. That's for like the stage class or the beginning instruments class. But like iMovie, when they do their presentation, they can perform it live with two or three people, so they do their part. they send it to their friend, and then they kind of edit it, put it together using iMovie. Or there's another one for PC. I think it's I can't think of the name right now, but this it's very similar to that. So
We Video works well.
okay, We
A lot of
Video.
districts have We Video, yeah.
So that's what they use. They upload that final video to me, and then I present that to the class. This is the this group performing this song, and this is the name of their group or whatever it is, and then we just do it like that. So yeah.
Great, thanks so much. I kind of want to segue into just how you get started. Do you have a preference, between starting with music or lyrics, or even, maybe if you don't think that there's a right path, how do you kind of choose which path to offer your students first as they're just starting off writing a song? And I know, let's see, I'll toss this one to Rosalind first.
So, as an instrumental music teacher, many of my students are really nervous to sing or use their voices. So, we mainly use instrumental sounds in our compositions. And I've attempted to start with lyrics and I've attempted to start with music first. And I found in most instances, it actually helps to start with the lyrics or a theme first because it can set the tone, it creates a story with which to draw imagery from, and it paints a picture in your mind, which you can then transform into a soundscape. So I found that actually using words first, even if there are no words in the actual piece, ends up being most successful.
It's really interesting to me that that would be the case with people who are probably the most uncomfortable writing lyrics, but they still need a basis for knowing like what kind of picture they're trying to paint. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. How about you, Mario?
Um, it just depends. For the first project, I did give them the chords. Again, I use the little kids' resources, the build your own guitar chart, and I'll add my own progression, and I'll use these for the verse, and use these for the chorus, and see what you can come up with, and then we'll work on the lyrics. Once you write the song, then I can be maybe you should cut that out or add this so it flows smoother. But it's I've done that for the last couple of years. But the thing is, I love it. I love having that build your own chart because I can play around with it. It looks really nice too, really professional. So
Yeah, so I want to break that down just a little bit more because so you're giving them the chords pre-made, and then the areas of choice are what lyrics they're writing over the top of it, the melody. Do you get
correct.
into like strum patterns with them at
Correct.
all?
Everything is written
Okay.
on the chart, and that's just at the beginning. Kind
Mhm.
of towards the middle, then they can start playing around how they want to with whatever chords they feel comfortable with, or whatever progression they want to play with. But yeah, that's at the beginning, just to get them started. And I go, look, play around with these chords and see what works for you, and I'll be there to assist you, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And do you find, is it interesting for them how far the tunes will, like how different they will be with the same kind of basic beginning
Oh
elements?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think at the end, it's like, oh man, there's so many combinations. There's so many. Though you might have that chord progression with the three chords or the four chords. There's like a million ways to approach it, and everybody does their own little thing to it, their own twist, and it works. I mean, and it the way it complements the vocal, the melody line, and it's really cool. Like, oh man, I would have never thought of that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jasmine, how do you get started? You kind of mentioned one way, but I'd love you to elaborate.
The fourth through 12th graders, usually it's picking their chords first. And and always it's like a 2 to 4 chord song. So when the idea of you play the same 4 chords throughout the entire song. So the students are starting very simple with a simple 4 chord song. They could even do a 2 chord song if they wanted. And then, so that's just the very beginning steps. And then from there, what I try to encourage them to do is to start humming a melody and developing lyrics on the spot with it. It's okay if they plan lyrics ahead of time. When we create a song on the spot, they love writing lyrics together, just like what your workshops are teaching. But I do try to encourage them. We have someone playing some chords and then get a vocalist to volunteer to start vamping vocally and creating some lyrics, kids shouting out lyrics. With my kindergarten through 3rd graders, the focus is on creating a melody and lyrics on the spot. So it's similar to like Fire Robin First Steps in Music song when the kids are doing Arioso. I just ask kids to sing a song, an original song on the spot, and they just create it. And they just make up a story, kind of like Elf, the movie Elf. You know, it's like, I'm here and I love you. It's that, like, I'm trying to encourage them to do that. Again, it's just making it part of their language. Music as a language, it's an extension of how they would speak.
Definitely. I just want to share a quick anecdote. We had Carrie Brothers Jr., who is the producer for several Alicia Keys albums, talk with some of the all-national students over this past weekend. And one of the kids asked, like, how did you write No One? You know, like Alicia Keys' like biggest hit. And he was like, we had this hook, and she started humming, and I said, it sounds like you're saying no one. Is that what you're saying? And she was like, sure. Like, that was the process. It was just sort of them stumbling through it until it was like, oh, this is a hook. This is a thing. And then they built it from there. And the kids afterwards responded so viscerally to that idea, because they were like, oh, it really can be that easy. And that really can lead to great songs, not just fun songs, but like really powerful, long-lasting tunes. So yeah, thank you for sharing on that. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the idea of lyrics and song, meaning. So we know that songwriting can be very cathartic for kids. We know it can be even healing for kids. So how do we use songwriting as a tool towards that end? And how do we use it to facilitate some social emotional learning as well? And let's see, go ahead, Rosalind. Yeah.
So, in these times, especially with beginner instrumentalists, I found composition to be extremely helpful in opening up the doors for music making. Students don't need to know how the note F sounds on a trumpet or use the correct fingering in order to choose a cool beat. And so, composition has been a way to help facilitate social emotional learning because it offers students access to music making on a more level playing field. And there are many software programs available for free that students can access for music making, like we mentioned Soundtrap and BandLab. There's another one called GroovePad, but you can't collaborate on that one, but I have some students using that as well, and it makes really cool beats. And all these programs are available as apps or websites on laptops, smartphones, and tablets.
Yeah, so just the fact that they can access it now and instantly make music gives them that feeling of success. I think that's huge. Jasmine, what do you think about this one?
I spend a lot of my time teaching, getting students kind of the beginning levels of making music. And so when they get more into the advanced, so my older students, they start to go really in depth with their expressions of how they're feeling, whether it's with like politics or just like understanding their bodies and who they are. And so when they start getting into that more advanced category, it's really fascinating to see them. Like I have a student who has gone on to do social justice and music writing. And so these students are taking it to the next level. At the early level, it's a lot of development with just risk-taking and feeling good. We're constantly clapping for kids. You share something, it doesn't matter how great, if it's something created on Soundtrap and it just sounds a mess, but it's their first time creating something in a piano roll and it's a disaster, we're all clapping. So my focus is much less on accurate feedback and more so on celebrating the risk-taking. And then eventually the repetition, I think, naturally starts to create some really good music.
Do you have that conversation with them ahead of, like, before anyone is performing or sharing their work? Do you have that conversation with them, and how do you set that up?
I think the first few years, because for me, it takes a couple years at a new school to kind of set the tone. for what you want. If you get a whole new group of kids every year, then I think you have to set the tone every time. But initially, I would have to explain what's appropriate feedback. Once the students have the idea of it, I think they grab onto it really quickly. A few students might have personalities like me and need to get pulled aside and be like, hey, can you kind of like just bring it down a little? You've got great feedback, but let's like tone it down a little bit. But you know, the English teachers and the elementary classroom teachers, they're already teaching that in their classrooms. What is appropriate feedback? And so I think we're pretty lucky in that a lot of students already have those skills as long as they know it's expected in music class.
Yeah, thanks so much. Maria, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Jasmine said. The students do their presentations and on the chat, they write positive things. I don't think I've ever heard, even in the last maybe 3-4 years that I've been at that high school, any negative feedback toward that. You guys sucked. I mean, you can tell the kids that didn't put in the work or didn't practice. I know that when the first couple of notes that, these guys didn't practice their song, but even then the kids will clap and like, okay, thank you. um but yeah, it's because I think they have to, they know that when it's their turn, the last thing they want is somebody saying something bad about them. But it's been, at least at this school, it's been positive. Even at the middle school, when I was in middle school, the kids were really positive, positive things, which really, helps them. And after a while, like I said, you get used to each other. Like, what's the same class, performing for each other. So it's like, it just becomes easy. Just be like, okay, it's like another day in class. So
Yeah, absolutely. I this kind of transitioned into another question that I had about formal and informal peer feedback. I'm curious if any of you have structures for formal peer feedback. So I'm like, I, I'm I'm hearing that the most important thing is to keep everyone really positive, help them to just be there for each other, support each other, cheer each other on. How do you handle when you really want the kids to be able to identify something that is either incorrect or ask questions, like work with each other in like a more technical sense?
yeah, I mean, I've given the students also like a little 5 questions. What did you like about the song? What didn't you like? Where they can give it to that group that performed. They might not know the technical, oh, that progression was off, that should have been a minor or a major, or the the she sang or he sang out of tune. I can't grade the students on that. Some students that don't want to sing, I go, speak it. Hip hop, that's what you do. You spoken word, man, nothing wrong with that. But I've given them like little questions where they can, where it's feedback to, and I can give to the group, how can we improve? um what did you like, or what did you not like, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, does anyone else have thoughts on like a more formal feedback process?
So at the end of the composition process, I have the students actually fill out a rubric, and they're able to then like quantify music, if that's a thing. But students are constantly providing informal peer feedback in class on a weekly basis to their classmates, and it's a regular part of the music making process. I help to guide them to ensure that they're providing constructive feedback that can be readily implemented into the student's work, rather than for a student to just say, "That song sounds nice. I really liked it." I ask them, "Well, what did you like, or what did you think was nice about it?" And I encourage them to be specific in their feedback. So instead, you get an answer like, "Well, when you did the part at the end where you opened and closed a squeaky door, I thought it added a spooky sound to the song that I thought was really creative." And so then you get a little bit more meat to their feedback, and it helps the students to improve in their songwriting.
That's so key too, because then you're guiding them to more specific musical language and vocabulary that they're going to be able to use. I know that that's something when I was in the classroom. Um, it's so common to just you listen to a song in a social situation and the judgment is this is good or it's bad. And I think very few people are given what I would consider as a gift to actually put language to why they like something or why they don't like something. And then, I always tell my kids, like, if you don't like it, that's fine. You can probably keep that to yourself for the most part. But it is helpful as like a creator to know why you don't like something so that you don't accidentally fall into those same traps. Um, that's so, yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Does anyone have more thoughts on feedback? Or I think we did cover it quite a bit. All right, so another question that we pulled out of the hat here. How do you navigate or prevent students' writer's block as they're working on songs? And why don't we start with Jasmine? Do you have anything on this one?
Let's see. I think I just do a lot of games, and I give a lot of leniency in how they create. So allowing students to, what they submit to me is, because right now I'm doing a songwriting unit for my middle school and high school classes. And so they're having to do 2 to 3 songs, original songs a week, but that song could be a riff. So they can just be focusing, like think about Smoke on the Water and Under Pressure, like that. Those songs are made because of a riff. Or another student might be, they're just going to do some electronic music on Soundtrap. Another student is going to do an entire thing an entire song start to finish. But so I guess I give them a lot of leniency, and then also using those silly songwriting prompts as well. I haven't yet pushed a theme, which I think would be interesting to do, where it's like, we're going to do current events this week, or we're going to do like a historical, let's research something historical. But I think that would be also an interesting way to do it as well. Yeah, and I think I look a lot of YouTube videos for ideas. So I'll play like a short video at the beginning of class from a professional songwriter that just gives ideas. And so they're always getting kind of a fresh idea from professionals out in the field.
Yeah, that's great. Does anyone else have ideas on that?
Well, I find it's really common to find students who just don't know how to start. In order to mitigate this, I begin by using something small, like a color or a feeling or a memory, a found sound, or a theme to inspire an idea or imagine in their minds that can be associated with different musical sounds, and then we build from there.
Yeah, do you keep like a prompt library, or are you just kind of comfortable pulling them off the cuff? How do you handle that?
Usually each year we're focusing on like a theme within the school. And so we're focusing on Black Lives Matter this year. So for our Black History concert, it's going to be all about that.
Yeah, that's great. I think at least, just hearing you all talk, it's like, oh, it sounds like folks have really good colleagues that they can lean on, to be a part of the community too, to not have to teach every part of this process in the music classroom, which is very cool. Great. Let me see. I have a couple more, and then at least a couple more, and then we'll open it up for some questions from the chat. I am curious how you have had students showcase their original compositions. How do you celebrate the finishing of a project like this?
Usually at the when the song is done, so the students work on the song for 2 weeks, from rehearsing to writing to whatever you need to do. And then what we would do is we would do like cafe performances. So it was always like a coffee shop or a cute cafe from different parts of the world, and they would say, "Hi, welcome to, you know, Cafe We from Paris, France, and we are." You would say the name of the group. "Hi, we are so and so, and this is their song," and they would play it, and they would do it like that. So I think they like doing that. For one of the projects, I did a collaboration with the art teacher. So they went into the art classroom. They picked an art piece from one of the students that they liked, and that was their source of their song, that they were gonna compose a song, being being just by that. And what we did with them is, we went upstairs to the art class, and the students played, like, this is the piece we selected, and they played it for those students, so they really enjoyed that too. And the same process. We're in a cafe, we're here, we're that. So I think they like that.
Yeah, that's super fun. Did you have them like create these cafe, or did you like pull them from real
I
places?
pull them from real places. I love to travel,
Fun.
so I go, this is from Australia, this is from different parts of the world. And I go, these are actual places, man. So if you guys are ever visiting and you're in here, go check them out. So they were always coffee shop performances, I would call them. So yeah.
That's super fun. Great. Any other ideas for showcases?
I just put them into our school-wide performances. Before the pandemic, students would perform their songs using live instruments and voices, and now that we're remote, we pre-record our pieces and add them to the digital compositions, and put that into the school-wide performance that's then streamed online.
Yeah, and I know, Rosalind, that you had a lot of students participate in the songwriting exhibition last year too. What was that experience like for them to be able to, have that kind of heard more publicly?
I think that they really enjoyed it. It was nice that they got to put all this time into this piece, and then they were highlighted for it. We have their work on the school website, so that there were a few all the students voted on which teachers they wanted to judge the compositions, and then the winners got put on our school website. So it gives them a sense of pride in the work that they put in, and like being able to be showcased. And every student's piece was actually put into the school performance, but some of them were highlighted for different other things. So I think they really enjoy that.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And Jasmine, I know this is a really big thing for you to showcase. Will you give like the very mini elevator pitch of what you're trying to do with your youth stage and kind of showing off your students' work?
Yeah, so Polaris is expeditionary learning school. And so when I first started working there in 2012, one of the things I learned from expeditionary learning is authentic learning opportunities. And so the principal was really stressing to find authentic learning opportunities, especially out in the community. And so, there's lots of opportunities to showcase the kids, particularly songwriters. We try to get into cafes, coffee houses just around town. But we were able to get a grant. And so we do have this youth stage trailer, which will allow us to go out into the community, be part of events that are off school grounds, and be able to feature youth performing with those songs. I also love it when they could enter songwriting competitions, and then I'm interested in the future looking at making music videos once they create like a really good product. So, doing the songwriting, good quality recording, and then creating a music video. So that's kind of the long scope of things. But I mean, my very first year teaching, my music teacher mentor, who'd been teaching for a really long time, outstanding music teacher, she just said, you need the nugget. Like, what is your nugget to get kids excited and motivated? And so usually it's a performance, it's going out somewhere, doing something special like that. And so whatever we can do to let them see that goal, the end goal of the reward of writing that song, I think is really valid.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing about that. So much of our pedagogy is centered around music that our students know and love. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about was how are we using our students' own music as a model for them to create their own? Um, so I'm just curious. There's a lot of different ways we could kind of attack that question, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, one of the first things I think when I go back to how I learned how to teach in college was everything had to be written down. It was this formal process. And I've all but maybe 2% of my songwriting I do with students is not written. It's not written in notation. It's, you know, standard notation. It's all done with using kind of the ultimate guitar style where there's the chords and then the lyrics, and really just fitting the style of how the people they love to listen to on their streaming service. So we're emulating that style, music that they would potentially make professionally. So it's not to say that that the standard notation is invalid, because I have students who really want to do that direction, and I want to support that. But there was a relief that fell off, and it was also scary when I finally gave myself permission. I'm thinking about elementary specifically, where I was like, we're not gonna write it down first. We're just gonna make it, which is what Little Kids Rock talks about, is music as a second language. I mean, we're just gonna create the music together. And, you know, for people that are in the jazz world, that's not a foreign thing, but for me it was. I'm a, you know, choir person. I played flute in a traditional band, and I didn't understand how you can create music without it written first. And it's just like, to me, it's now I look back and I'm like, writing it first before I hear it, like that, you know, but that was what I was taught before. I didn't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's a pretty common story. What other ideas, Mario or Rosalind, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I try to find pop artists that use interesting techniques in their own music to demonstrate how the same thing could be accessible to them in their own homes. So, one of the examples I used was a pop song called Bury a Friend by Billie Eilish. And in it, one of the found sounds she uses is a dentist drill while he did work on her Invisalign braces. And so I tell the students, well, look around your room. Like, what can you use to make a sound? And so I just found my dog's hairbrush and made a sound, and then we put that into a composition.
Yeah, I love that. And it's super fun to just like literally bring their home into the music making is really very cool. How about you, Mario?
Yeah, one of the kids and the what did she use? She used a cheese grater for like a Guido. So Guido is kind of like that Latin, you know, like a scraper thing, and it worked. You know, she was like laughing about it, and I go, man, it sounds really good, and it went well with the song. The song was like a little cumbia, little Colombian style song, so it worked really well. I go, man, awesome. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Does anyone ever? I mean, I'm guessing the answer to this is probably yes, but have you worked on like parody songs with students? You know, taking that as like a more direct grab from that and making it their own?
Yes. Yeah, that was one of the projects. It was a parody song, keeping keeping clean. We got one of the songs again from the Little Kids Rock library. We're going to use this song. I forget what it was. I think I used that Frozen one, Let It Go or something. And they just kind of made like a little cute parody on, washing your hands and using sanitizers. And I also explained, believe it or not, you can use the song and the melody, and I don't think you can get sued. Like Weird Al Yankovic, he makes money. I don't think he has to pay he doesn't pay the royalty because it's a parody. So it's also a little bit of the business of music, how that works.
Yeah, I think you get at least 6 notes in a row, anyways.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to ask one more, and I know we have quite a few folks with us, attendees, and a couple of questions starting to come in. Would love to see a few more, so I'm going to ask one more. And now that you've seen kind of what we have talked about, go ahead and put your questions into the chat if you're watching this, the areas that we haven't talked about. So the last question from me is, so you've written a song, your students have a song that they're working on it. How do you incorporate recording into the process? Like, when do you bring that in, if you do, and does it kind of depend on like what style of music they're working on? Just wanted to just kind of give folks who maybe they've never done songwriting with their kids, and they're saying like, I'd love to do this and I'd love to have a product, but like, how do I get there?
So with my students, I started teaching them sound trap a number of years ago, and my high school students, I get a lot of new high school students coming in, so a lot of them are pretty fresh to using it. But I start teaching it right away as kind of a primary tool they all need to know. And I was surprised now that I've been doing it for a while. I asked students this time around, just this week, what method they use for recording or like writing down their songs. And half of them are recording it. They don't even write it down. They're just recording it onto their phone. They're recording it directly onto Soundtrap. And so that when you asked that question, it just dawned on me that some of them, that starts at the very beginning for them in their songwriting process. The other students would do it more like I would, where I would have like a journal and I'd write down my chords and my lyrics and I just kind of remember it. But if they do it that traditional way, once they've created the song, I do one-track recordings. So I encourage them to do that. So first they would record just the instrument with a click track playing. So they're learning how to have to keep tempo with a click track with headphones. And then after they record that, then they have to record their vocals over that. And so we just do one track at a time.
Great. Yeah, Mario, what were you going to say about that process?
Yeah, the same thing. You know, it's a Soundtrap. If we're gonna do like an MP3 or a wave, just using Soundtrap, and they're pretty good at it. I mean, they're already using your phones for other things, so they're really good about it. Just record it in there and just keep adding the track. I want the kids not to give me a like an MP3 track, an audio track. I want an actual video track. I want to share it. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because of their internet is not the best, so it's difficult to upload that video so I can share it. But when possible, I prefer just a video of them playing it. Yeah.
So for me, within all of the music software I use with my students, I challenge them to use the voice or mic option to either include sounds or words into their music or objects so that it's unique to them. So rather than only using pre-recorded loops, if a student uses their own voice on the project, no one else can claim it as theirs. And when in person, after receiving the proper documentation from parents and guardians to record their children for educational purposes, I often video record each step of the process on my phone in class, especially with group composition, so that we can refer back to it and see the product that they made from the previous class and just jump right back into the music where we left off. Sometimes it's a small lick that a student played on their instrument or they sang. They may not know how to write the notes or the rhythms for it, but we can refer back to how it sounded in order to reproduce the magic. And last spring, I submitted the finalized projects that the students made and had them registered with BMI, which is a performing rights organization in the US. And it's a free service and it only takes a couple of minutes to do per piece, but I did it because they were streaming their pieces online, and I wanted to make sure that in the years to come, they would have the copyrights to their compositions, if anyone in the world ever tried to make it big using their work.
I love that. And that's such a, Jasmine, earlier you were talking about like authentic learning and authentic experiences. Like that is a part of that authentic experience, is wanting to have ownership of your own work, have like agency of your own voice. I did want to ask one quick follow-up to you, Jasmine, as someone who's teaching this K-12. When it comes to the recording process, I know we probably have some elementary educators in here. Like, when are you starting this, and how do you kind of scaffold that so that they can start incorporating recording at a younger age?
So I start song recording in kindergarten. And so if they have classroom iPads, I ask them to bring the iPads into music, and they start playing with GarageBand a little bit during the year. But when they're full on using it by 4th grade, and I'm trying to move it down to 3rd, which is Soundtrap, using it just like the secondary students would be using it. With my younger students, like the kindergarten through 3rd grade, as well as my 4th through 12th grade, how I introduce Soundtrap is it's up on the screen, and just like what Mario was saying, we write a song together. we do soundtrap together, and I set up a microphone that's hooked up to my computer, and we just play around with it as a class. And then eventually I say, hey, could somebody take over? And they sit at my computer, and I'm just sitting in the back, and they kind of take ownership in that. So kindergarten through third grade, it's a group experience. And then as soon as they're able, if they have the technology, then the students are all just doing it independently. They're collaborating together in their spare time. They're very serious. Like my third through fourth graders, they make bands. They have a band name. They meet together regularly on Soundtrap, and they're writing stuff. And it's just astounding what kids can do now because of that web-based DAWs, where they can all get together and make music. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is very cool. So I want to make sure I get to these questions now. So Carlos Silva, hello, is asking Rosalind specifically if you would be willing to share an example of the rubric that you use for songwriting. I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send it to you guys.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. And then I wanted to highlight this one as well. How do you incorporate cultural context into songwriting pedagogy? And again, I feel like this question could take a lot of different lanes. So feel free to go in whatever direction you feel about cultural context, songwriting. How do we help those to meet in the middle?
Okay, well, for me, as I said, we're preparing for our Black History and Latinx Heritage Showcase next month. And so I have the students writing around current events such as the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I had them choose a prevalent theme within the movement and write a 4-line poem based on that theme. And then the plan is to have them speaking their poems to accompany the instrumental composition that we collaborated on at the end. And it kind of ties everything in together really nicely.
Yeah, that's great. So are those themes offered to them, or did they identify major themes?
They identify it. So I'm like, well, what is the Black Lives Matter movement about? Why are people, even joining this movement? What is the issue? And then they come up with the themes, and then they write a poem based on it.
That's great. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Do any of you have your own compositions that you share with the kids for inspiration, or do you, I know some of you kind of talked about modeling songwriting with the classroom, but I think it's really interesting to hear about people's kind of personal journeys with this and then how they come into the classroom. So I'd love to hear about that.
So I don't consider myself a composer, but whenever I assign these activities for my students, I always do one with them so that they can see the process step by step and how easy it could be or how simple you can make it, and so that it doesn't feel scary for them. So then I end up with all these compositions at the end of the year that I made just as demonstrations for the students, but I don't ever do anything with them beyond that.
All right. Well, maybe 2021 is the year your album drops, Rosalind. Mario, did you have something to add on that?
Same thing. You write your own song and you share it. I've had other stuff that I've worked with other artists, and I'll share that too. I go, hey, check this out, man. And they're like, wow, that's really, really cool. And it's not just the song itself, but the process, what we did, how we approached that particular song, what was my input, what did I record. So yeah.
Definitely don't take the time to do my own personal songwriting creating, but I am, I'm a mom and teach and I'm exhausted, but what I'm trying to do, because I create like Mario and Rosalind do, and some of them crash and burn and some of them are great, and it can be, especially if I'm doing it with high schoolers that are just doing professional level songwriting, and mine is crashing and burning, but I just I want to make it a safe space, and gosh, that really helps make a safe space for everybody. But what I was just trying to do the last few days is with my older students, I'm taking them through the songwriting process, and I said, okay, you're gonna get 5 minutes to pick your chord progression. And then I put a timer on, and I'm sitting there, and I thought, well, like I should try it. So to switch my mode from the teacher in kind of panic mode, like trying to keep everybody together and do what they're supposed to do, I actually stepped back and allowed myself to create a little bit. And then I had 20 minutes to do like the songwriting and stuff. And so I did do that, and it was fun. It was really fun to be able to allow myself to make songs with the students. And I want to get better at that.
Yeah, thank you for all of your just for being vulnerable and honest. And that's like kind of a personal question to ask. So Robbie asks, do you use songwriting to teach different genres of music? Like, do you have students like ask them to write songs in a particular genre? Like this week is punk rock, and next week we're doing cumbias or anything like that. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about the songwriting, because it's your class, you can pretty much come up with whatever you want. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I'll do that. We're gonna write in this style, and this is the reason why I want it in this style. Oh, this song is a punk song, and you kind of go over that, or a cumbia, or whatever you want to call it. So we're gonna get these punk songs from all these bands, or from this band, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn them into country songs. We're gonna get those lyrics, and we're gonna change it, see how it works out. So there's many ways to approach the different assignments. So yeah, I think one of my favorite one, and I'll get to that in the next maybe a couple of months, is I'm gonna get lyrics from a band or an artist, and or they're gonna choose their own song. Like, hey, I love this song. Okay, what is it? It's a punk song. I want you to make it into a ballad. Oh, it's a cumbia. No. Now I want you to make it into a punk song, just to throw it off. And you're like, oh, okay. So, I mean, because it's, again, you can do whatever you want with those projects. If you can make it work and you can sell it, like, hey, this is the project, and we're gonna do this. I think they really get into it. They really do.
I've never had my students actually write to a specific style or genre. I feel like it just happens organically because the students naturally already have different interests in music. And so I think it's kind of cool to see what they come up with without giving them that constraint, although I do give them other constraints.
Yeah. All right. Great. Um, I know there's a few lingering questions here, but we're also in kind of in our last 5 minutes. Um, it seems, for example, like Rosalind, we might need you to maybe elaborate, make a video for or something about how you went through the BMI process, because I think there'd be really some interest around that for students. But I want to kind of leave off here at the end with I'll give a couple announcements, but the last question will just be like a favorite fun game or activity that people could implement that you like to do with your kids. So while you're thinking about that, panelists, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who is attending this. And thank you for spending some of your time with us. We miss being able to see you in person, and we hope you're all doing well. So yeah, and just a huge thank you to our amazing panelists. This was the easiest job ever, getting you all to just talk about the amazing work that you are doing. So thank you so much. And yeah, with that, why don't we just go, Jasmine, Rosalind, Mario, tell me one favorite game or activity that you do with your students for songwriting.
So the songwriting icebreakers, there's just one that's called the fishbowl, and so each kid gets a piece of paper, and then I'll say write down a favorite cartoon character on this blue paper, and then on the yellow paper write down a place that would be interesting to go. So they're all writing these down, and they all put it into a bag, and then each group gets each color paper. They just kind of draw out, make sure they have one of each color paper. And then it's just really funny if they've never played it before to realize that what they put down is actually gonna cause someone else to have to write about it. There's just utter joy from that. And they don't tell each other like what they have. And so when they come back after a few days of creating that song and they perform it, the audience is just so happy because like they wrote about Winnie the Pooh and I put that in there.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. All right, Rosalind.
For me, it's having students find objects and make different found sounds and creating a really cool groove or a beat that we can make just with sound and no voices.
Yes, textures. I love it. And Mario.
Yeah, for me, it's more of the actual assignment, the assignment, the songwriting project that we're gonna work on. My favorite is has to be the Dr. Seuss. You know, March is his birthday, so with everybody gets a story and they write their song based off of the words of the book. So that's my thing that we do that I love. I really look forward to that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again so much. I know in the chat there's been some big thank yous coming in from across the country for our panelists. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a very wonderful rest of your week.